So my name is Maura Eldredge. I am currently living in Holden, Massachusetts. I'm from Worcester, Massachusetts, originally, and I graduated in 2010.
Okay. And so why did you choose to URI? Like what drew you to URI?
Initially, the campus. My first campus visit, I fell in love. I then met the staff and the faculty, and it clicked. It was the right fit for me.
I love that. Was it like the Harry Potter-esque buildings? That's what did it for me. I was like, I feel like I'm in Harry Potter.
Yeah, it was a big campus. It was large, but it wasn't overwhelming. It was very picturesque. I loved the quad. I loved the coastal feel. The people were exceptional. The reputation was amazing. I was happy to be accepted and decided right away that this is where I wanted to go to pharmacy school.
I love that. So you spoke about the reputation, and that's definitely something that I found like during my time here, that the URI College of Pharmacy carries such a weight with the name, and people who are familiar with us, they know like the caliber that the students come out. Now that you've graduated, do you find that reputation is the same, or has it changed at all?
Oh, no. Everybody and I have traveled for work. I currently am in the Midwest. Everyone knows URI. They know the pharmacy school. You actually tend to meet a lot of alma maters that are countrywide, which is nice. It's not as local. So the network spans, which is amazing, especially when you get into your professional career. So it definitely, there's longevity there, and it helps you.
Love that. We're hoping that'll help with jobs.
That's
so
the goal.
what were you involved in with your time at URI? Anything like pharmacy, non-pharmacy related?
Yeah, I mean, pharmacy school keeps you busy enough, right? As you know, but I did play 5 years on the university women's rugby team, served as their captain, and that was probably the best experience for me throughout my career at URI. Made some lifelong friends there as well, and got to do something a little bit different that was outside of pharmacy that, you know, again, opened up my network, which was amazing, which is another reason, you know, URI has everything to offer, not just a pharmacy school. So I feel like you really get to be well-rounded in your friends and your network and your experiences.
I love that. Women's rugby. I don't think I've ever met another pharmacy student who's done that. We've got like the swimmers and like a football player here and there, but that's so cool. Oh my God. So did you play rugby in high school and you just continued in college, or was it something you joined for fun?
No, initially I joined, I came to play soccer, and the strain and the stresses were too great. So I wanted to try to find a sport that I played lacrosse as well. So I liked that physical touch, and I showed up, fell in love with it, and never looked back.
I love that. That's so cool. How unique. I didn't do anything unique like that. All I did was like study abroad and join a sorority. It was
never too late to learn something new, and that was incredibly fun. I still play to this day, and I still we still have reunions, and we still keep those ties. It's a whole separate community that's really nice.
Mm-hmm. And I love that. Something outside of pharmacy school, I feel like we get very hyper focused on what we're doing in the classroom, and if you work in a pharmacy or if you do any extracurriculars in a pharmacy, like you're so focused on pharmacy that you need something, anything to not like be in that mindset all the time. Just you need a break.
If you're 100% in one bucket, when that bucket crashes, you've got nothing left. So I'm a big believer of having a couple burners going.
Exactly. So moving on to a little bit more career focused. So can you provide a brief summary of your career path up to today?
Sure. Yep. So essentially, I followed one line. I was lucky enough. I actually took a geriatric medicine elective with Dr. Estes, which introduced me to this world of geriatric medicine and consulting pharmacy. I was fortunate enough to meet with a manager of the long-term care company that I currently work for shortly after graduation. So I did a few months of retail. I had met with him, decided it's something I wanted to pursue. And a few months later, he had a job opening in Maine. So I relocated to Maine, worked there as a consultant pharmacist for 3 years. Came back to Massachusetts, it was time, and worked basically all of the New England states for around the next 7 years as a consultant pharmacist. A clinical manager position opened up, and I was fortunate enough to interview and obtain that position, which has taken me now to the Midwest, where I currently am, Ohio, Michigan, and West Virginia, and that's where I am today.
Love it. So could you talk a little bit about some of the roles and responsibilities that you see as a consulting pharmacist?
So a consultant pharmacist is essentially the be-all resource clinically for various facilities. States and the federal government have regulations with the addition of a pharmacist to the interdisciplinary care team. So the consultant pharmacist works with doctors, nurses on a daily basis, cares for patients, works with families, and is kind of the everything. We review patient medical history, charts, labs, notes. We interpret all of that, and then we put that into clear, concise clinical recommendations that we leave for our providers. Oftentimes, we set policies and procedures with facilities. We're a resource for state and federal survey regulatory issues. We provide education. We do med passes. We're really sort of your one-stop shop for everything clinical that you need.
I love it. It sounds like you're very involved in all aspects of healthcare. It's not just the pharmacy, it's not just the medications, but you have such a broad oversight. And I think that that's really lacking in a lot of situations now, where you only get to see one part of like a patient, you don't get to see the whole thing.
Yeah, it's very unique in that. The regulations state that we review the entire medical record, and we do. So you get a lot of well-rounded clinical recommendations that you can leave. You have a lot of good clinical work you can do. You really get to work with your doctors and your nurses as a peer because you're right there with them. You know your patients the same as they do. It's a very unique situation, and to me, it's the best job that there is.
I love it. What would you say has been the most rewarding part of your career so far?
I think the most gratifying part of this career is the teamwork and working alongside the doctors, your mid-levels, your nurses, being a part of that interdisciplinary team that brings in dietary and psych and working all as one and really contributing to that. And then actually seeing it translate with the patients that you see on a daily basis is just, it's overwhelmingly rewarding.
I love that. On the kind of the opposite end, what do you think is the most challenging?
I think challenges are inherent to anything that you do clinically, especially in pharmacy, in every job that you have. Certainly COVID has been the biggest challenge. It almost seems like the challenges of the past were very simple compared to what we've been working through. We've definitely been hit the hardest by COVID of any healthcare sector in the world. And trying to claw our way out of that hole, trying to provide some normalcy, trying to provide our services in the face of the restrictions that we've had, the outbreaks that we see, that's been very challenging. And we're still working on that.
Yeah, it's a continuous process, one that I'm hoping is resolved soon, but no. Every time I'm like, oh, we're getting closer, and then they're like, oh no, there's another wave, and I'm like, okay. So
yeah, learning to adapt. I mean, it's where you have challenges, you need to learn to adapt, and we are definitely on the adaptation side of this. So
okay. So can you talk about your role as clinical manager, kind of what your day-to-day looks like, and how was that transition going from just a consulting pharmacist to the clinical manager?
Sure. So, I mean, the role is different. It's more of an oversight role. I still do clinical work, but my primary functions are to manage a team of clinical pharmacists now, as well as be a clinical liaison for some larger accounts and facilities that require that role. I also work on clinical initiatives that we roll out for the consultant pharmacists, for our customers, educations, things like that. So a little bit less hands-on and more of an oversight role.
Okay. Which one do you prefer? Do you like the clinical manager more, or do you miss sort of the consulting part?
I am lucky to be very happy with the work that I've done, whether it be as a consultant or as a clinical manager. My best days are when I'm in the field doing clinical work because I just love it so much, but I'm very fortunate that I am very happy in what I do. So it's a toss up.
Well, that's good. So you're currently pursuing an MBA, correct, in health management?
Mhm.
Yes.
Yep.
So can you talk a little bit about what led you to pursue this degree and how it will end up helping you in your career?
Sure. So I had thought about getting my MBA, dual Pharm.D MBA, when I was at URI. Ultimately decided that it was not the right time for that to happen. I've thought a lot about it over the years. In my perspective, any degree is a good degree, and an opportunity came up recently through my company to reopen that door. And certainly in the last few years with the management role, an MBA appeals as it speaks to more of a business side than a clinical side. I think it will be beneficial in my career path, and I'm excited to get it done and under my belt.
I love it. How far are you through the program?
I'm about 80% there. So
There.
I just a little bit more, but that last climb up the mountain always seems like the hardest part.
Yep. I know how that feels. Oh, well, good luck with that. That's super exciting. What made you pick like health management?
I mean, health management is so versatile. And so in pharmacy, as I'm sure you're exploring now, there are so many different career paths and options. Health management sort of spans that general healthcare sector versus a general business administration, which is more financially specific. And I think that will certainly be more of what I put to good use.
Okay. Okay. And how do you feel that URI prepared you for your career path in pharmacy?
Well, it led me to my career path. So it certainly gave me connections to make my career possible. It's how my introduction to this position was via a URI connection. It gave me an awesome education. It gave me the ability to say I went to URI and the networking there, which is fantastic. It continues to give back to me, and I'm grateful, and I just love being a part of the alumni community.
I love it. So the final question, and it's always my favorite question because I think it's so applicable for no matter what position you are in pharmacy school, whether you're a future student, a freshman, or a P4 like myself. And it's, what advice do you have for the future pharmacy students and the future pharmacists who are attending URI?
I love that question. Pharmacy school has changed even in the last 12 years that I've left it. My advice would be to explore all the paths that are possible via a pharmacy degree. Again, fortunate enough to have Dr. Estes come in and offer something different that I had no idea existed and has ended up being my entire career. There are opportunities out there that we don't often see, we don't often think of. Certainly a career panel like this probably helps, which is amazing, because you have to find something that you want to do it well. So look everywhere, up, down, and other, that your Pharm.D can take you. Find something you want to do, and then you'll do it well.
I love that. It's great advice. And especially with URI, and I'm not sure, what the number was when you went, but we've got 19 different student organizations, all dedicated to a different sector of pharmacy, and things I didn't even know existed. And I'm like, look, I remember looking through.
That is not the case.
That's a thing.
That's amazing. Pharmacy is not what it was when I went. I mean, when we were graduating, everybody had a job and knew where they were going a year prior to leaving. Pharmacy schools flood the market now. There are a lot of pharmacists. So, do the extra, be a part of the organization, get the extra degree, do the residency, look high, low, and otherwise to find what you want, because jobs aren't just handed out like candy anymore. And when you have one, you're gonna stay in it. So make sure you like it.
I love that. Yeah, it's sometimes I think I should just go for whatever job I find, and then I'm like, well, what if I don't like it? I don't want to do something I don't like. But there's so many things out there, and so many things that the more I learn about them, the more I'm like, oh, that sounds like fun. I could do that. Then I'm like, oh, but this sounds like more fun. And then I'm like, no, that sounds like fun. So I feel like I change it every day, whether I want to do, pediatric hospital pharmacy, if I want to do community down in St. Thomas, they've got a position open there. I was like, that sounds like fun. MTM, I'm like, there's so many options. And I do think that really does speak to how pharmacy as a career is evolving. And Dr. S always likes to say, she's like, when I graduated pharmacy school, like half these positions didn't even exist. And that it's such a dynamic profession, and we're really getting to do a lot, and I love it.
It is, and it will keep changing. So whatever you do, stay on top of it, because doors open years later that you didn't even know would. So I think it's just best to be well informed, know what's out there, always keep your eye out, and find something you like to do.